Hi guys, Sean here from digiDirect. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Fujifilm X-T100. This is Fujifilm's latest release. It's a small size camera, a bit smaller than the X-T20, similar in size to the X-A5. Although unlike the X-A5, it does have a full viewfinder on it that kind of retains that bit more of that classic Fujifilm body design. At about $1,000 Australian for the body and the kit lens, it's an entry-level camera aimed at people who want a good quality interchangeable lens camera, but they still want it to be fairly affordable and fairly compact. We're going to go through all the features of this camera, and we're going to start with the design of the body. So the camera looks kind of like a mini X-T20, which I guess makes it kind of like a mini X-T2. That size is a really nice factor though. It makes it pretty easy to fit in a small bag. Size was already an advantage of most Fujifilm cameras, but this takes that just a step further. And while the look is not a departure from existing Fujifilm cameras, I still really like it. Fujifilm really nails that classic retro look. I think it comes across really well in this camera. It's definitely a style statement. It does come in 3 colors, black, silver, and my personal favorite, champagne gold, which is the one that you see here. It's also a very solidly built camera, which is good to see considering its relatively low price point. Another thing that it has that many lower cost cameras don't have is a viewfinder. And it is a good quality viewfinder as well. It's 2.36 million dots, so nice resolution. It's very nice to shoot with. We also have some nice articulation on the LCD screen here. It's actually a somewhat unusual form of articulation. It's different than the kind of the central side swivel that most fully articulating LCD screens have. It mostly does the job though. It covers almost all angles except if you're looking at the camera from 90 degrees to the right. That's the only angle it won't swivel to. But it does flip all the way around for selfies as well. We have a few dials on the top. Unlike most Fuji cameras that have dedicated manual dials that don't change functions, these don't have pre-existing markings on them, and they do control different settings in different modes. And note, there are 3 dials in total. Don't forget to miss this little small thumb dial on the back, which is kind of hard to see. Other than that, there's a small amount of buttons for your basic controls, quick menu, a customizable function button, and so on. It also has touchscreen capability, so you can change autofocus points, touch shutter, and so on, which will be comfortable for those who are stepping up from a smartphone. There's some nice touch toggles on here as well to change the AF mode, film simulation, and so on. There's a built-in flash, which is handy, and on the side, we've got a couple of ports, including a 2.5mm mic jack. That's a weird size. 3.5mm is the standard, so you're going to need an adapter for most mics to go into this camera, but it is better than nothing. There is no headphone jack though. There's also a little screw port here on the side where you can add a small hand grip, which is sold separately. The battery is pretty good. It's the standard Fujifilm NP-W126S, but it is rated at 430 shots on this camera, which is pretty high. The camera also has Bluetooth and Wi-Fi to connect to your smartphone. So the camera has a 24 megapixel sensor inside of it, which is a fairly standard resolution, but it's a good resolution. It's enough to blow up decent sized prints, crop in a decent amount on your photos. Like most Fujifilm cameras, that is an APS-C size sensor. Unlike some Fujifilm cameras, that is a CMOS sensor, not an X-trans sensor. Now, the difference is somewhat technical between the two. Suffice to say that higher-end Fujifilm cameras tend to have X-trans sensors. The differences have to do with the way the pixels are arrayed on the sensor. About 5 or 6 years ago, that would make more of a difference between CMOS and X-trans. These days, that difference is minimized. It's not as great as it used to be. I really wouldn't worry about that on this camera. Suffice to say, the photos coming out of this camera still are excellent, and they do retain that classic Fujifilm look, which, realistically speaking, if you're looking at a Fujifilm camera, that should be part of the reason why, because Fujifilm has a really unique look to their photos. I end up saying this every time I review a Fujifilm camera, but the photos coming from a Fuji camera just have some, I don't know, undescribable nice quality to them. It has to do with the fact that Fujifilm made, film for decades. They've taken that expertise and put it into their digital rendering. The colors are beautiful, especially when we talk about the film simulations, which we'll get to in just a moment. But yeah, the picture quality coming out of this camera is excellent, and it looks like, a classic Fujifilm camera. So I just mentioned those film simulation modes. Those do make an appearance in the X-T100. These have been in a lot of Fujifilm cameras. They're basically digital representations of classic Fujifilm film. So like Provia, Velvia, Astia, these really beautiful color profiles that just look really, really nice. I really like on the X-T100 how it's implemented, because when you're in a semi-manual or full manual mode, if you just nudge the top left dial here on the camera, that's going to let you change your film simulation mode. It even gives you a little preview window to see what it will look with the different modes. I think that's really slick. When I'm shooting with a Fuji camera, I'm always trying to take advantage of those film simulation modes because they look so good. And to be able to just turn the dial, quickly switch between the film simulations, rather than dive into menus to change them, to have the preview window there, It's just a really fast way to really take advantage of those modes, which I think are a big strength of this camera and Fujifilm cameras in general. So I really liked how that was implemented. I thought that was really slick. So overall, very good picture quality. I like the film simulations, and I like how they're implemented as well. Another little thing I liked is the auto ISO setting. So there's a couple different auto ISO settings, and you can, for each one, you can bound it to a minimum or maximum, well, minimum and maximum ISO setting, as well as to keep a minimum shutter speed. That's really, really nice. It kind of avoids the problem that some other brands have where you put it on auto ISO and all of a sudden it jumps up to 3200 ISO even though it's a bright sunny day, or it keeps the ISO real low even though that means you're shooting at 1/20th of a shutter speed, or something like that, just kind of silly stuff. For that reason, I usually don't use auto ISO because I find it kind of will sometimes mess up photos. But to be able to bound those restrictions on this camera means you can just use that auto ISO a little more confidently. It's a little more intelligent and kind of common sense. So I really like that as well. So the autofocus on the X-T100 is pretty good. It's got a 91-point autofocus system, which is the same as on the X-A5, but on this one, the processor means that it's a little bit faster than on the X-A5. I found it to do a good job in a wide variety of situations. Now, it's not a sports camera, so don't expect it to, do perfect tracking of fast-moving subjects and so on. It can do an okay job at tracking, but like I said, it's not going to be perfect. For the price point of this camera, though, I thought it did an admirable job. It can shoot 6 frames per second in terms of burst shooting, and it has a buffer of 26 JPEGs, so not huge numbers. Again, not a sports camera, but in a pinch here or there, you can shoot some short, burst sequences. Now, one thing Fujifilm is not very well known for is video. They have made some attempts to address this in some recent releases like the X-T2 and the X-H1 with some success, but the X-T100 is not a video camera. It can shoot 4K, but only at 15 frames per second, which is kind of useless because the video is going to be super choppy. You can do 4K time-lapse, which is neat, and it does have 4K burst mode. This is similar to a mode that many Panasonic cameras have where you'll shoot 4K video and you can pull screen grabs from that. In this case, it'll shoot 4K at 15 frames per second, so you can basically shoot 15 frames per second burst. Now, note though, those are going to be the resulting images are going to be 8 megapixel JPEGs, not full resolution RAWs. You can shoot 1080p video at up to 60 frames per second, so you can get some nice slow motion footage in 1080. And the 1080 footage does look quite nice. I do like it. Now, as I mentioned earlier, it does have a 2.5mm mic jack. Again, most external mics are going to be 3.5mm, so you'll probably need an adapter. And there is no headphone jack, so you can't monitor that audio. Lastly, let's take a quick look at the 15 to 45mm kit lens that comes with the X-T100. I think it does a pretty good job. It's obvious that it is a kit lens. It has lower build quality than most Fujifilm lenses, and it is an electronic zoom lens. Other than that, though, I can't really fault it. The picture quality is quite good. It is 3.5 to 5.6 aperture, which is par for the course for most kit lenses, and it does have image stabilization. So it does a pretty good job, especially if you're getting into interchangeable lens cameras. It's a very good starter lens. And that's the key point here, because it is an interchangeable lens camera, so you can swap this out for any other Fujifilm lens, and they have a very, very high quality lineup of lenses. So it's really good for someone, getting into interchangeable lens photography to start with this lens, but then there's lots of room to grow because you can just expand into Fujifilm's lineup in the future, swap out this kit lens for something else. But to start with, I think it does a good job. So overall, I really like the X-T100. There's nothing astonishing about it, but it takes all of Fujifilm's staples, puts them in a compact and affordable package. So you've got the picture quality and those gorgeous film simulations that you're looking for from Fuji. The build quality is nice. The viewfinder and the articulating LCD screen I think are nice options. There's a couple nice features that are make it easier and faster to use. That you've got a lot of lens options if you want to expand it in the future, and I think it's pretty stylish as well. The only thing I could really point to as a negative is the video capabilities of this camera. Although if you're happy shooting in 1080p, it does a passable job. I think if you're someone stepping up from maybe a smartphone looking for your first interchangeable lens camera, this is a very good entry-level option. Or alternatively, if you just want to get that Fujifilm look in a small, more affordable package, another great option here. I think it'll be pretty popular. You can order the X-T100 now on our website at www.digidirect.com.au, or if you're in Australia, you can come to visit one of our stores where you can try it out for yourself. We've got stores in the Sydney CBD, Bondi Junction, Miranda, the Brisbane and Melbourne CBD, and Cannington, Western Australia, which is just outside of the Perth CBD. Thanks, guys. Take care.